Welcome to the Slightly Serious Sign Podcast, brought to you by Wensco Sign Supply, the #1 podcast in the sign and graphics industry for news, events, new products, and customer success stories. If you want to know what's going on or you want to grow your sign shop, you're in the right place. Here is one, some, or all of your hosts, Mike, Tyler, and Domingo. Hello and welcome back to the Slightly Serious Sign Podcast. This is episode 129. This one's a little different. We recorded this one offsite and actually with someone else's equipment. So this guest is Brent Knott. So he's the owner of Design It Wraps in Jacksonville, Florida. Pretty big shop that he kind of is trying to teach people how to scale up a shop and kind of exit it, or at least partially exit your business. He does that through Wrap Shop Academy, which is his business consultant that he's showing people how to grow and scale the wrap shops, as well as kind of take themselves out of the day-to-day operations. He also is behind TorqCRM, if you've seen that, just a CRM tool to help you optimize your shop, keep track of your customers, all of that good stuff. He also runs Wrap Shop Talk on YouTube, which is actually how I found him and how I've seen a bunch of his content. And they just did this whole event a few weeks ago. A few weeks ago is relative depending on when this episode goes out, but they did an event where they had a whole bunch of wrap shops come in and show them how do they scale, grow their business, and hopefully keep them from getting stuck in the day-to-day operations of their shop. So we're going to jump straight into this podcast. You're going to see it's kind of just a real hot start depending on how our conversation went, but hopefully you guys enjoy this conversation as much as I did. So we'll drop in now. Okay. So we're talking about how there's a lot of these guys that are, you said their identity is wrapped up in being a rapper. That's the way I'll put it, right? We're at this event where there's a lot of people that have been doing this 10, 20, 30 years that are just consider themselves rappers, right? They're working in the business, not on the business. How does somebody get out of that trap?
So, I mean, basically the first step is documenting exactly what you do. So a lot of people, the big thing that I've been really cruising through is like, how can we speak like an installer language? Because I'm super empathetic to people as to why some people's growth is stunted, because my mentor, so I day one had a partner who understood business, but the problem that I had, he'd be like, we need to do purchase orders for our ordering. And I'm like, dude, I'm 23. I don't know what like that is. And he would like coach me up and why it was important. I'm like, that's a lot of work. I'm busy. Right. And so yeah, that was like really early on, was he was already teaching me like year 10 stuff, like week 1. And had I listened, I'd be a lot further along. But the problem is he could never break it down into a language that I could understand. And so like when you hear SOPs, it's like, yeah, sure, I know it's standard operating procedures, but like, how do I even arrive at that? And, up until recently, it was not necessarily difficult. It just took more time. But nowadays you could literally take meta glasses, or you could take an Insta360 camera on your chest, and you could just do an 8-hour shift of you working. Like you are already running standard operating procedures. They're just not documented. That's the problem. So when the next person that you hire, you're still having to repeat your day's worth of work, but you have doubled labor.
Yeah.
And that greatly affects you because you're not effective. That's why you can't afford them, is because the time frame in which that second person gets you an ROI is too long.
Yeah.
Typically for most shops. But if you just like day one start in your business and you start, like all these young guys already like doing social media and stuff, and we have a product that's very visually appealing on social media anyway, you can get 3 levers for one on documenting just your day. So you could literally just take, I use these as a plot. And so when I do sales calls, or if I'm having a good conversation, all I have to do is just click this and it's recording this entire conversation. And it goes into the same spot every single time. And it can, if I said like Torq, or if I said Design It at the beginning of it, then it will automatically archive it in the right folder too for me. So I can kind of shorthand some things. So in that case, like if I was saying an SOP or sales, it would be sales, and it'd put it in the sales folder. And I'm creating like a brain database of information. Now, a lot of people get overwhelmed with AI and they hear like agents and all that stuff, but that's why like I've been breaking down, like just record your day. If you could record your day, at the end of the day, you can put that video into Loom which is just a software for screen recording, and it's used a lot for training. But they have an AI tool inside of it where with a click of a button, it'll take, let's just say, an hour video of you installing a front bumper. And while you're installing that front bumper, you're like, so on the C8 Corvette, we actually have to go inside the fender well, like, and you're just talking out loud while you're doing the work. You didn't write anything down. Loom will literally write the SOP and even take pictures and keyframe moments for you, and you're done.
I think it's even easier if you're bringing on a new employee, right? Because you're already going to go through what you would normally do to train an employee, right? Which oftentimes is stuff that you don't even remember. And the guy that we were just listening, we're at the Elevate event this week, obviously, and the one I was just listening to, he says, if you bring on a new employee and they mess something up and it wasn't in your SOP, then that's on you. That's not on the employee, right? If you didn't tell them how to do it, or you didn't show it to them, or you didn't put it into writing, then it's your responsibility, not theirs. And I think some people get nervous about how complex those can be, but with the tools that are available, it seems like it's gotten a lot easier to do it.
It's in the last year, it's never been easier. And I didn't put that together until I was talking to somebody, but that framework that you just outlined is called like omission versus commission, or active mistakes versus passive mistakes. So whenever you are developing SOPs, people are the secondary to most people is they're overwhelmed of, there's so many hats that I wear. Like if you physically imagine yourself throughout the day changing a hat, it's like admin hat, sales hat, designer hat, installer hat, and you're constantly changing hats. And so the sheer overwhelm of like, I have so much shit that I have to document. And that's why like step one is don't even worry about the individual video. Like let AI chop it up for you and just say like, here's my stuff today. What SOPs can I even derive out of it? It'll kind of say like, I think it's this. And they're like, okay, cool. But if you just did that every day, you will stack up and compile a database. And, but the active mistake versus passive mistake, the way a lot of leaders, they get frustrated with their employees. And the way you can kind of remove some of that pressure off of yourself or even the employee, because I would dare to say that most employees want to do a good job more so than they want to show up to work to not do a good job.
Yeah.
The problem is a lot of them don't understand what is the finished defined result that they're trying to strive for, and they're guessing.
Yeah.
And then they get to the point where they just don't even know, and then they stop trying because it's like, no matter what I do, I don't understand what you were trying to tell me, and I'm just not going to get there, and I'm just going to take my paycheck then.
Yeah. We just talked to a shop that they broke it down, right? Here's how much money we need to make for you to be employed here, right? And they gave like a baseline, right? That says like, okay, for you to be employed, this is the amount of dollar value you need to provide, right? And we can break that down, right? They track it all in their software. And they're like, so if you want to make more money, right, like this is the baseline, right? If you're above this, that's an easy conversation for us to have. If you're at that baseline or below that baseline, then this is a really hard conversation to have, right? And I don't think most businesses are even tracking that.
Nothing, for sure.
Yeah. Where do you think on the tracking side for employees, for SOPs, where do you think that starts for most people?
So I actually think it goes back a step to what we were just talking about, still in the SOP framework of the omission versus commission. Okay, whoever it is that you hire first, that's the thing that you're going to work on the most, because you're already winging it when you're doing it yourself, right? And you're just not possibly not documented. But if you are documenting it, cool, just keep compiling data. But if you hire whichever position, so let's say you hired a shop helper first. Well, every time they make a mistake or ask a question, the way you can start to fill in their role, because the likelihood that the first hire you hire or even the first attempt is most likely not going to be the right guy anyway, because you're not good at hiring either.
Yeah.
But whenever the mistake or error or question arises, then you could just ask the question. Do I have a resource in which you can answer that question, yes or no? If no, then that is literally the document you work on that night. And it's your daily checklist. And because what happens is every time you ask that question, let's say they made an error and they come to you and say, hey, I broke that clip. And it's like, well, did we provide you with the resources to ensure that the mistake didn't occur? They're like, no. It's like, okay, well then can you document most of it and then I'll fill in the gaps. And then we will have that for later. Now, when they finally come back to you, because now this is like, if you ever read the book, Extreme Ownership by John, this is literally the actual action of extreme ownership. And that's why I like the framework. It's a tool in leadership to keep you, I'm emotional. Like, I'm actually very calm, but I get very frustrated. And when I'm frustrated, I'm very upset. So I have to use tools to keep myself in line for the most part. And so the question is, did the business provide you with the resources to achieve the defined result? And then finally, after you've owned it like 5 times, eventually they come to you and you ask that question and they're like, I chose not to follow it.
Yeah.
And they feel dumb. And my mentor always did that to me. Like he would always provide me with everything. And when he would ask that question, I'd feel so stupid. And I didn't know why. Like, I was like, God, this guy's such a like mental jujitsu guy. Like, I always just feel so, like, I'm never mad at him because I'm like, damn, he's right.
Yeah.
But it's because he took ownership always until it was my active choice to not follow it.
Yeah.
And so that is what people can do. Like, so in order to understand what you even need to track, you have to keep asking those questions. Every problem you have in your business is a feedback loop of the next thing you need to solve.
Yeah.
And if you treat it like that, ignore like the list of all the things you must do, because it's never ending.
Yeah.
And it's just that one's right there in front of you right now. And the likelihood that one's going to happen again next week is very high.
Okay. So if you're a shop owner and you realize, hey, I need to delegate some of the stuff off my plate, right? And SOPs aren't even on your list because you don't even have anyone to delegate it to. How did you guys go through that process of deciding what roles you needed to fill, and how did you go about filling them?
So I did it completely wrong. For sure. I built the entire back end of the business, and I think a lot of shops do that too. I think we all try to hire installers first because we hear you need to work on the business, right? And in order to do that, you don't need to be installing in your mind. But you hiring an admin is working on the business, because you are now doing something in the business that you don't have to physically do, therefore it is on.
Yeah.
Right? And so I think a lot of us installers, we think that we have to stop working with our hands immediately in order to work on the business. In fact, it's more so like, if you look at a basketball team, you don't have all Michael Jordans. You have Dennis Rodman, you have all these guys, right? So you don't have 5 quarterbacks, right? You are the quarterback of your team, and it's better for you to hire linemen so that you can keep making plays and doing the things that you need to do, and have a goalie at the front to keep customers from interrupting you. Mr. Customer is very important, but it's much better for admin Susie Q to ask the 15 questions to the client that they need to do, and they train them on that, which is much easier, by the way, than training an installer.
Yeah.
You are the breadwinner. You install at a faster rate than anyone, and it's the longest skill in our industry to learn, for sure. So until you are able to fill in all the other roles, I think you should hold that role, unless there was another quarterback that was equal skill and you were willing to take the pay sacrifice that it would take to employ that person.
Yeah.
And then you also have a secondary sacrifice that people don't realize, which is you now suck at those other roles.
Yeah.
And so that's what I did. I hired installers, I trained installers, I spent a ton of money trying to get there. And then I moved my way up to the front of admin, and I hated my job. I didn't like the role.
Yeah.
Right? And so the whole idea behind building and who should you hire, I think we should, especially early on, like, some people are impatient with this process, but like when you first start, like, the season of grind is real. It's just making sure that you get out of the season of grind into intentional work, and you must grind and do all the positions, but you need to get the most leverage on your time. And I think hiring the front, either a good designer that can kind of like flex into admin and flex into production a little bit is good. An admin that can flex into production, but also flex into sales, but then manage a designer like remotely is a great position, because like where they're able to kind of zone, if you will, in the business is much more effective.
Yeah.
And it keeps you in the back.
Yeah. It's also interesting because
those front roles actually are way more, what do you call it? Cross industry, right? Like you can hire a designer outside of the wrap industry to come in, and there's not that big of a leap to get them from you design flyers for, Walmart or whatever, to come in like, oh, now you design for vehicles, right? There's a gap there, right, with how vehicles work and all that stuff, but I don't think it's as big as taking somebody that's like, hey, I was thinking about being a welder, now I'm going to wrap vehicles. And the same with admin, right? Like, I mean, the person that answers the phones and books appointments, that's the same role across 50 industries probably, right? So that's interesting, because that would be the shortest barrier for hiring an employee would be anyone in the front.
Cheapest.
Yeah, well, that's a good point too.
Like when you think about comparison, how much value would you get out of an admin at $25 an hour than a good installer at $25 an hour?
Yeah.
The good installer is not going to stay, right? In many cases. So you can find great admin, could be a younger person that is going to use you as a stepping stone, and that's okay, but that's better than investing a year into an installer that's going to use you as a stepping stone because you don't have enough throughput through your business for them to see a vision at your workplace.
Yeah.
Because that's the other problem is eager people that are A players. If you're not building your business correctly, the reason why they leave is because they don't see a career with you.
Yeah. They don't see the vision where you're going.
It's confusing because you look confused. And so back to like me hiring the back end of the house, I legitimately would hire people to watch me work. Look how good I am at this. Seriously. They'd go, hey boss, like it was like they knew. Hey boss, like can you show me how to do that cut and drop? Yeah, let me show you how badass I am. Like, right? And it's so funny because it was true when I really stopped and audited myself. Like they would always ask me how to do the hard stuff. And they got the general stuff, but I was constantly interrupted all day. Yeah. They never took accountability of their role, but then they also can kind of manipulate me and they can get the job done and they can get paid for it. Yeah. And so, and then the secondary part to that was that then I wouldn't have enough volume of sales because everybody's in the back. So I had no front end acquisition at all. And so nobody's watching that. And we're all just standing in the back having fun, but it's costing me a lot of money. Yeah. We talk about this with Matt at Digitally FX, where sometimes when you start, especially when you're an installer, right, that's how you got into the business, is you work on, you're like, okay, I have nothing to do, right? So you're out there doing sales, right? And then that was successful. So you come back and you're like, oh shoot, now I got a bunch of installs to do. So then you do a bunch of installs, you get done with all those, and then the pendulum has swung back, right? You have nothing coming in because you've been in the back. So then you go back into sales, and he said it was just this constant swing from I have too much work to do to I have no work to do because I haven't been doing sales. And I think hiring front of office might be a quicker solution for that too. So, well, I call it like a typewriter effect, like, cause it is like when you're fully on over here and then you come all the way, and like you said, it is basically a pendulum though, but it's like, ding, it's like, fuck. And you get back over here and go hustle up some more work. Right. And that's also the feedback loop that occurs there. Then that's why you accept lower bids. Yeah. Because you need the work. You don't get to choose whenever you need it, because in supply and demand, you have no supply. So you have high demand that I need that sale. So when the client comes back to you and you're like, yeah, I'm $4,500 for X. And they're like, well, can you do $3,800? They're like, I really need it. So yeah, sure. And that's what keeps them in that cycle, and why you can't sometimes even afford a person, or actually why you can't not afford to hire that person, because if you were more proactive in having more seeds out there, then you can be pickier about the clients that you bring in. Yeah, you brought up a good point there. The thing we see frequently is shops that are super busy, right? Like they're so busy, all they're doing is installs, right? They're slammed, they're backed up weeks. And when you're like, oh, it seems like you need to hire somebody, they're like, oh, there's not enough money coming in, right? They're like, I couldn't possibly hire another person right now. How do people get over that barrier of they're so busy, but then they still manage to not have enough money to bring someone in? They're guessing on pricing. They have no clue why their price is their price. I actually just had a conversation yesterday. I just asked the question, how did you arrive at the price that you arrived at of $4,000? like, what is your standard of gross profit margin? And they were like, well, I mark up the materials by X, and then I attribute X amount of installers for this many labor hours. So the total sum of cost of goods sold and an installer is $2,300. So I'm happy with making $1,700 on the back end. I am not happy making $1,700 on the back end. That's less than 50% gross profit margin. I don't even know what the number is. I don't care because it's less than 50. 50 is the 2013 absolute lowest that I would go. And if I couldn't make less than 50% gross profit margin in 2013, you for sure cannot in 2025.
Yeah.
And so once people start to understand their gross profit margin and why they arrived at the quoted price that they did, then they can start to make real money. And it doesn't take much. That's the thing about business that a lot of people think is like this one massive lever that you pull and all of a sudden it changes everything. It's not. It's, okay, if I'm already optimized at the top of my let's just, every little zone is a little different on pricing, right? It's just true. If you're already at the top and 55% is your top dollar gross profit margin that you can get, then how can you increase your efficiencies? And how can you reduce the friction and drag that it takes to sell it? Or can you play games with it? So like say a commercial wrap, are you over installing for the price you were charging? So door handles, mirrors, bumpers, pull it off of your price and then sell those a la carte, because a lot of customers won't even pay attention to that. And so like, if you look at the, and that sounds bad. It's not that they don't pay attention. It's more that the price comparison between you and the other shop might not have included those because the customer never asked.
Yeah.
And it's not clear.
Yep.
Right? So it's like when you order a salad and you add a shrimp, there's an upcharge. So your bumper is your shrimp, right? And then door handles. Is there any ROI on a door handle on a commercial unit? No. There's zero. And so what we do at the beginning of the sales process then is, if I want to price high but still bring it down so my margin's high, but my price aesthetically appears lower, then you just reduce the friction, right? And so no roofs. So if you want the roof, cool, $450. But I don't recommend it, Mr. Customer, because there's zero ROI. Well, we do a lot of work at condominiums. Okay, well, that makes a little more sense. Cool, we can add it on. But now they trust us too because we didn't try to take their feet.
Yeah.
Right? And so door handles. Well, I don't really like my door handles are a different color. Well, we can skin them for free, but if you want to wrap them, they'll be $65 each.
Interesting. Yeah, just over the front.
I'll just do the face of it. It's quick and easy, and it's kind of in the middle, but there's no ROI on the handles. Your staff is going to beat the shit up out of them anyway. And so like that's why we don't wrap them. That helps keep the prices where it needs to be. We make sure to focus on their ROI for your business. So anybody who says, I'm busy and broke, that feedback loop is your pricing is too low.
Yeah.
Or you're not putting it out fast enough. It's one of the two, but typically it's the price.
Yeah, we listened to the one you said you want to go to, which is Chad from Get Graphics talking about it yesterday. And he said, when I talk to a shop and they say, oh, we're 2-3 months out, he said, I get excited. He said, because I know, oh, you got room to increase your prices. If you're booked out that far with the people that you have now, you're charging too low. That means you're accepting too many jobs. And I thought that was an interesting take to say, like, at a certain point, if you get backed up far enough, you're saying, okay, we could have been higher then because too many of these people are saying yes to our pricing and we have room to grow here.
Do you know, what do you feel that the typical conversion rate should be on a warm lead?
Oh, that's a good question. We're obviously on the distribution side, so that's hard to know.
So
I don't even think I would have a guess.
So it's a trick question. Like it's a very simpler version of what you just said, but the trick question is, hey man, when customers come to your shop, what's your close rate? And they're like, 100%. I just close them every time. Like, too low.
Yeah.
It's a trick question,
yeah.
Right? If you close 100% of the sales that come into your door, then you might be taken advantage of.
Yeah.
Right? It should be 60 to 65%.
Interesting.
And the thing is our brain, our brains are natural. We live in scarcity.
Yeah.
Right? So we don't think somebody else is going to come in tomorrow. Now imagine, let's break that down into the 2.5 months. Is it likely that if you were only booked out 1 month, that you will probably still fill in month 2?
Yeah.
Most likely. Right? So if you raised your prices, let's call it 10%, and you're $1 million business, and your year net, I heard this yesterday and it drove me nuts, that you're lucky to make 20% net in your business. No, that's bullshit. If you're working in your business, 20 to 30% net should be standard because you're working in it. You can make 15 to 20 owner operator if it's highly efficient. So and I know a guy who runs at like a 27 to 30% net and only operates as a business owner.
Yeah.
Now he's there, but he's that efficient. So it's possible. It's true. And that's all that needs to happen is it is true at least once, right? Now, if you were at $1 million in sales and you only had 10% net, that means that your income's $100,000. Let's say you raised your prices 10%, regardless of how far booked out you are. Let's just say it's 3 weeks. The likelihood, most people are like, well, I'm going to lose customers. Okay, cool. Maybe. But typically it trends around 10% lost customers, okay? Worst case, you don't make any new customers. You'll make $900,000 that year. But how many cars did you not have to wrap for $10,000 earnings?
Yeah.
There's $100,000 in top line revenue that you didn't have to wrap now, and you still made $900K, and you just saved 20 units if you charge $5,000. And most people aren't charging that much, but you don't have to wrap 20 cars. You could go take a vacation and still make $90,000.
Yeah.
Right?
More time, same money.
Right. So the upside is that if nothing changed, all customers said yes, and or you had enough new customers to fill in the gap for the lost customers, you made $1.1 million in sales, but you made $200,000 in earnings for the same amount of work. You doubled your net, and that's way bigger. And that was a 10% change. So I mean, instead of $4,000, you charge $4,400. It's not huge.
Yeah. On paper, it's not going to look any different when you hand it to the customer.
But across the span of the year, $400 is so marginal that like you didn't sell the value. If it was once you get to like $1,000 difference, like it's grossly different and it's a different conversation. But the $200 to $500 differential usually can be negotiated.
Yeah.
It's the absence of value.
We just wanted to give a big thank you to FDC for sponsoring the podcast this month.
And I think there's a lot of opportunity you talked about cut and drop just briefly earlier about your employees doing it. And I heard a trainer talk about how they present cut and drop to the customer, right? Because every customer, technically, if you asked them, hey, do you want us to do the whole thing or do you want this little white streak, right? All of them would be like, yeah, do the whole thing. Yeah. But if you present it as, okay, we have two options here. Option one is the one we'd like to go with, cut and drop. Here's why. It'll leave a white streak, but warranty's covered. It'll last forever. If anything goes wrong, we'll cover it. The other option, not covered under warranty, will look a little better, yes, but also it's $700 extra because it takes us 4 extra hours or whatever. And all of those numbers are arbitrary, right? You can put it as high as you want, right? You could say, oh, it's $1,000 extra for us to do because how long it takes us and the issues with warranties and that kind of stuff. And if you just presented it, the first option, which is like, would you like the whole thing covered or can we leave a white streak? They're all going to take the first option or the full coverage option. But if you give them the option with, here's the reasons why, and it's more expensive to do it the way that we actually don't want to do it in the first place, most of them will opt to take the option that you give them. And I think a lot of installers don't realize that they're doing this every day, right? So for them, they're like, oh, yeah, my customer knows exactly what they want, right? Because everyone knows how wrap works, right? And we see all the time where it's like, no, they don't, right? Like when a customer comes and asks you for something, they might not know that it's actually horrible. And you're thinking like, oh, of course they want to do it this way. But it can be a 2-minute conversation to explain that, hey, can we just do it this way? It'll look 90% as good and it will work and it's way cheaper for you. So I just think it's interesting how many people think that their customer knows everything that they need to know when they come in for the install process.
I think it's more that I see this in our industry. The industry is more focused about the installer than the customer.
Interesting.
If you look at social media, we are even seeing right now, like I'm curating my feed with I haven't because like I mostly was so focused on business development the last 7 years I didn't even look for business dev in our industry.
Yeah.
I looked for HVAC. I looked for the fields that were scaling, which also taught me a lot about my customer.
Yeah.
Right. So if you really start watching social media from a different lens, watch our industry social media from the lens of the customer. A lot of it's antagonistic to the customer. A lot of it is. A lot of it is us poking the fun about why doesn't the customer know that? A lot of it is how dare they not show up for their schedule. And it's highly viewed and highly commented on. But then we go look inside the comments and it's all installers saying, yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
But they're not our buyers.
Yeah, they're tailoring it to
the industry internally.
Yeah.
But they all tell me that they have issues with lead generation.
100%. I see this all the time, right? On the side, we're on marketing, right? For us, our biggest platforms right now in terms of views and in terms of users coming over to our website, right, is LinkedIn and YouTube are the first two, right? And YouTube, okay, some of them are doing it. There's like 4 wrap shops on LinkedIn. That's a hyper exaggeration, right? But all of their customers are on LinkedIn. You know what I mean? Like all of the installers are on Instagram because that's where the community's been. Some of them moved over to TikTok, sure, right? But their customer base is not on Instagram. Some of them are on Facebook, sure, right? Because that's where a lot of the business owners are, maybe. But a lot of them are on LinkedIn, and there's not a lot of content on vehicle wraps on LinkedIn, and that's crazy to me. That it's like, okay, the point of this is for you to reach your customers, right? Like, do I like to use LinkedIn? Like, no, but do I realize that that's where the biggest opportunity is for even for my customers, but also for your customers? 100%. That's where the majority of them are.
So there's a shop in Tennessee, young. I love this 22 to 30-year-old generation. They got more tools than we ever had. And they're willing to use them. They're willing to get in front of a camera, all these things. They're willing to do, some of them are even willing to do sales. This shop in Tennessee went from living in his print room at his shop, almost getting evicted because he was living there because it was against the lease, to doing $1 million his first year of sale, a year in business. And it was all from cold DMing on LinkedIn and cold calls.
Yeah.
And year 2, he's doing, he will do 2 million, guarantee it. And that's his efforts, is outreach on phones, networking groups, and LinkedIn.
That's crazy.
It's because he saw that there were no wrap shops on LinkedIn because it's not cool.
Yeah, 100% there aren't. Like even when we do these events, right, and we'll post something on LinkedIn, and then instinctively you'll just be like, oh yeah, I should tag these people. And you'll be like, they're not even here. Like, it's not even that they're not posting. They're not even there. They don't even exist, right? If someone goes on LinkedIn and they're looking for somebody.
There's a few, the ones who are like.
100%.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would say like the 5 that I'm aware of, all of them are, I would dare to say all of them are over 5 mil revenue.
Yeah.
All of them.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And what's really interesting is, like, I can tell you some of the ones, like, I'm not good at LinkedIn personally, but my director of operations is. She's always been really killer at it, but she also came from the corporate background.
Makes sense.
She worked in FEC, so she did Sky Zone trampoline parks, and she was like the person who would be like the rehabber who would go and make a location not profitable to profitable and all that stuff. And so she got good at the LinkedIn networking game. So she's been doing that for us. And like, I can tell you that this industry is so much larger than people ever. I went to one event where we happened to become a sponsor because she had a connection through LinkedIn that we did one job for, and they put us on that platform. The smallest fleet that I talked to at that event was 400 units. Crazy. The smallest. And it was crazy. I mean, I'm talking 1,000-unit fleets. One customer walking to my table, I'm like, yeah, so how many fleets you got? And they're like, we got 1,000 units or so. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Like, and it blew my mind just how little we think about the industry.
Yeah.
It's enormous.
100%. Yeah, and it's only growing right now.
It's only growing.
Yeah, it's even on the commercial side, right? That's been scaling, I just think, exponentially, right? And vehicles last less than they did before, which is great for us as an industry, right? Like no one's keeping vans out there for even 5 years at this point. It's
5
crazy,
years,
right?
Yep.
And but besides that, even on the color change side of things, we're seeing a big amount of growth.
It's highly accepted.
Like what we've seen with Slate, if you're familiar with what Slate's doing in terms of, they're literally just saying, hey, you can get this in one color, right? Which is kind of what Tesla's doing as well, right? It's like, here, you can get it 3 colors. If you want any other color, that's on you, right? You figure it out. Slate's doing it even a step back and saying, oh, we'll give it to you in any color. It's all wrap though. Like we partner with installers, they do the whole thing. And so if you're not putting yourself in the position to deal with some of these larger companies who are in those kind of places, right, or in your business commerce section, you're never going to be even in the bid for those jobs. You don't even know they exist until you happen to drive by your competitor's shop and he's got 47 vans parked outside and you go, what is he doing over here?
He talked to one guy.
Yeah.
It's just as much energy. And it took me a long time to realize that because, that's what's really cool. I am commercial, but I did do about, we were pretty close to $1 million in revenue on tint, PPF, and coatings. Okay. And I moved to a larger market, but at first I was in a pretty small market. And the thing that I noticed was you doing both is detrimental because the really nice cars enthusiasts and all that stuff, if you really look at the shops that really crush it, they're all in on that. They're not both for the most part.
Yeah.
Or at least they're side branded in a way where it's not like their site represents only the boutique type thing, because those people, when you look at your branded messaging, this is how I felt about my brand. When you looked at my website, I looked like a mom and pop shop that was confused as to what I wanted to do. But when I decided that I wanted to go all in on fleet, and we cut that out. We didn't quite stop doing the services yet, but on the website and what we were putting out to the world that we do, whenever those people looked at our site, it looked like we were committed to only solving that problem. And guess what? Within 6 months to a year, the business doubled, even though we cut that revenue out.
Yeah.
So it was just because the big fleets were willing to purchase from me or feel more confident in me because it looked like that's the only thing that I focused on. I'm not confused anymore. But whenever I had XPAL and this and that and like all these things on my stuff, and we do everything under the sun. Instead, we are a commercial output that focuses on speed, because we saw a problem that the upfitting side of the world was too slow. So we did get into upfitting, but then we do wraps with it. We put it under one roof, which reduce your waste. And that's how we're pitching it. And we are faster. We put a guarantee on it where every day that we're late is X amount of dollars towards your next project. And now we have an offer.
Yeah.
But couldn't do that when I was confused with all this noise and the phones ringing like crazy for $350 window tint jobs, which are profitable. But it took me away from focusing on the strategy for the commercial side.
Yeah. There's always a cost in time outside of like physically you getting jobs done, right? There's a limit to you being able to go out and promote if you're tied up doing jobs. And I think I don't know who I heard talking about it, but if you look at what you can make on a job, right, and maybe the margin is good, but you look at your time and go, okay, what's the dollar per time spent? And I don't just mean on install, right? Like for tint, there's not a lot of time usually soaked into those, right? It's pretty quick. But sometimes it's typically I have to talk to the customer 7 times, and then sometimes I myself have to deal with them. And by the time you're all said and done with after materials, we made $210. And you're like, well, if we look at our hours into it, we had, maybe it was only 3, but then you're like, okay, well, we made $60 an hour as a company on this job, right? Is that a good use of everyone's time? Maybe not, right? And that's where I think a lot of shops aren't looking at that number. They're saying like, oh, I made $250 in that car. I'd be like, well, how many could you even do? Like feasibly, if that's all you did, and realize that isn't a comfortable business for a lot of people.
Yeah. It takes really dialing it in. So like in Florida, our cost per lead was like $7 on window tint. Yeah. So the issue wasn't so much time because the cost was so low. It was more just the phones ring, 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 answer, ring, ring, answer. I mean, it was like just relentless phone calls.
Yeah.
You couldn't focus on anything else. And we were making sales.
Yep.
But like I said, it took us, those little jobs took us away from any form of strategy on anything bigger. And it got us through, it got through a lot. I think people should be experimental for their first, unless they have a crystal clear vision, they should try everything until they really understand what it is that they love. And then they should go all in on that.
Yeah, I agree. I want to make a pivot at this point because I want to talk about something we talked about yesterday, which I think is an interesting conversation. We briefly brought it up at the beginning, talking about AI. And I think there's some people that are super super latching onto it, right? And are jumping all in. And there's some people that are like, I have no clue what's going on, right? And there's so many tools available. There's so many, even large language models, right? There's 6, 7, 8 of them now available at this time. What do I use them for? What do I do for them? If you're a shop and you're not one that's dove all into it, where do you think AI is going to be your biggest asset right now?
SOPs. I strongly feel that people are using AI. Like when you look at the hype side of AI, a lot of it is like more work actually. Like it's like, generate me this report. It's like, cool, I still have to read the report and I have to do all this stuff, right? So a lot of it isn't taking work off desk. So something like recording yourself, throwing it into an AI, and then having it output an SOP is actually taking work off your desk. So that's the framework that I try to look at it through first, because it is overwhelming. There's so many things that we can do with it that it does create overwhelm. But if we can just start with the simplest things and learn, it doesn't matter which tool you use, because they're all pretty close and they all leapfrog each other so much. It's more about understanding, because it's kind of wild, wild westish right now, and it's not worth us going 100% into it yet. Because what you learn today, it will be 50 times easier in 6 months.
Yeah.
And so I think the biggest thing people need to do is just have a basic understanding of certain things around what they're not good at. So for example, I feel, it's my opinion, the reason why so many people hate AI generated designs, aside from the mob mentality of everybody using the same prompt, which is usually what happens on why people say like, oh, that's AI slop. It's because people are taking that image and saying, hey, recreate this for me and then put my information in.
Yeah.
But designers, for example, let's just say like the big design firms like Kickcharge, et cetera, it brought them down to like a 75 instead of 100 because they were, let's just say, top of the market, right? Skill-wise, it brought them down to 75. However, they're now going to lever those tools to get back up, and they're going to do it more efficiently.
Yeah.
Because they're smart. Now, the designers in the middle of the pack, what happened is the customer now can design closer to them, and there's not as much skill gap. And that's, they're intimidated in a way. What they should be doing is trying to figure out how to use it to get up higher instead of going against it, because if they go against it, the customer's already so close that the customer's not going to see your value.
Yeah.
Right? So, and again, back to that reducing the friction thing. As a designer, you understand color theory and all these things. So let's just say maybe you still draft the design, but how do we make the customer move away from their AI design? It's like, well, they present you this thing. It's like, okay, if that's what you really want, then cool, let's just do it. Like, reduce the friction. They showed you what came out of their mind from something that didn't exist, and they're excited and happy about it. But the way we should be using AI is, and I've seen a couple people do this already, take their website, load it into ChatGPT, and just say, research everything about this person's competitors in a 50-mile radius. Okay, cool. They come to you, the design that they gave you on the AI generated design is like orange and blue. And you pre-gamed like that before the conversation, all their competitor research, and it's like, hey, Mr. Customer, like, I love that you, like, is this like something that you're really excited about? Like, yeah. I was like, okay, well, what do you love about it? And they're like, I love all these things. It's like, okay, so my job is to have hard conversations with customers to make sure you get a return on investment. I did research on all your competitors, and 11 in your area are this colorway. If we do a rebrand, I don't want to do this one. Because of that reason, you will just blend in with them, and we don't want to advertise for them, Mr. Customer. They're like, you just created a problem that they didn't think about.
Yeah.
They were just excited, but you care.
Yeah.
And now you're the hero again. So then you can take all of that and you can do full design debriefs, and you can do it like these big design firms did for years with a big team from that platform.
Yeah.
But what you have to understand first is, how did those big teams operate? So once you understand that, then you can go and create individual prompts for each different process. So the research, then you can draft the mock-up and the mood board. To where you didn't even draft the art yet, build the mood board. Was just like elements. Yeah. Do you like these elements? And so now we're actually getting, again, that middle of the pack design firm group never did that.
Yeah.
They just slapped stuff together until, hey, client, do you like that?
Yep.
So I think that's the number one use that we can use it for, as far as the skill set in our industry. outside SOPs is the design thing. Like the even your color change guys. You can now use Gemini to do a GIF style representation of the actual color for the most part.
Yeah, on their car.
On their car, and it's getting better. Even down to like, how do we really crush the thing? I saw Prolific Design did this. He had his illustration of his 2D mock-up, and then he said, please make this mock-up like 3/4 turn in front of a nice house as a service company. Have the technician walking towards the house with a branded shirt. Here's the shirt artifact. Yeah. And it showed a render of what his team would look like going to the job. Yeah. Like selling the dream, like closing the sale. Instead of the 2D render of the file, which is probably going to blow their mind anyway.
Yeah.
Right? So stop worrying about like trying to conquer the world with AI and think about the simple steps that we're already doing. A 75-year-old man told me this. He said, we're all using AI wrong. He's my mentor. We're all using AI wrong. What do you mean? He goes, everybody's trying to like replace people. He's like, it's an encyclopedia. You used it like this yesterday. Who do I need to talk to at this event?
Yeah.
That's not doing business. It is perfect data recall based on the assets we have. But that's why we need to be tracking data in our businesses. That's why we need to be recording our work every day. If I record every sales call that I do, I can then say, like, or then if I hire an admin person and I have it all in one spot, admin can say, what would Brent do in this scenario? Well, based on this conversation, he didn't come to me to ask me the question.
Yeah.
And I'm still installing my car.
Yeah.
So that's how we need to be using AI, but AI is data first, not internet data, your data.
Yeah.
So we need to be documenting more. And I didn't learn that until I started doing video capture stuff that I realized was like, holy crap, I have a lot of data.
If you're doing vehicle graphics, fleet works, or general long-term signage, Metamark makes materials for how installs happen in the real world. MD5 is a super versatile film. MD5B is for spot graphics, partial wraps, or general long-term signage. It comes with Meta Escape, which is an AirGress technology made for bubble-free installs. MD5UB is their ultra-high-tech version of that film. This is made for textured surfaces, block walls, or low-energy plastics. You can check all of those out at Wensco.com. Metamark, made for professionals. In 2026, G2G and Wensco will launch 2 new products into the market. The one is the United Stick, which is a high efficiency, affordable, and reliable product for your sign and lighting projects. The second is LumaLink, which has a power pin design that's made to be cut and done anywhere in the field or in your shop. This is for small channel letters or any large projects. Check them out at Wensco.com. This episode is brought to you by Arlon Graphics, trusted for innovative high-performance cast vinyls. Check out their newest product, DPF V9500, a non-PVC polyurethane wall film built to tackle ultra-textured surfaces like a pro. More exciting new products to come soon from Arlon. Check them all out at Wensco.com.
I mean, on the podcast side of things, right? Like, people would be amazed at how well AI could write emails for me right now. But the reason for that is it has, we're 130 episodes in, right? So it's got to have 70 hours of me talking that it can run through.
Exactly,
so it knows how I sound, what I like to say, what I don't like to say, words I use, words I don't use. And it's every time I do, I just sound like, it seems like I just wrote this thing, right? Mm-hmm. Even to like down to how you space out your words, right? Everyone writes emails differently, but all of that is only based off of I have data to put in there, right? And if you're not tracking it, you can't do that. And even yesterday, going back to how you can use it well, Charlie was talking about how he changed his inputs in QuickBooks to be more basic, right? So instead of it being like, here's the job, right? He basically was like, there's really like 4 or 5 buckets, right? It's commercial wraps, it's banners, it's stickers, right? Like group them into buckets. And he said, if I made sure to tag them correctly, he said, then the data was cleaner on XBut. And he said that was before AI, right? So then I could go at the end of the year and be like, okay, here's what we did in wraps. Where before you kind of had to be like, well, was this one wraps? I don't know. And now with AI, you can just export that data out of QuickBooks and be like, which ones did we do well on? Which one did we make money on? Which one did we lose money on? And typically, as long as you've done the math before, it probably has your math, right? It knows what your overhead is. It knows what you pay your employees. It knows all of that. And it can just be like, well, based on how long this took you and what you made and what your costs were and how much you pay your employees, these ones were profitable and these ones were not profitable. And you can look at that and be like, hey, maybe banners aren't making money. You know what I mean?
That happened to me.
Yeah.
I didn't use AI to find that out, but like that function though, and it's easier now than ever. But like at the end of the year, when you look at all the things that you sold, it's like, man, we sold $25,000 worth of banner. That's nice. It's high profit margin, right? But I also sat on a roll of material, and then how long did it take me to web it up, and how long did it take us to hem it down, and all these things, and like you got this really big bucket. It's like, what if I just did more of that?
Yeah.
And then it's easier. My guy leaves. I don't have to train banners anymore. Reduce friction.
Yeah. I think it's interesting just with what's available right now. It's crazy to see how people are using it. And there's so many ways you can use it. I think it's going to be really easy if you're not intentional to get stuck in the weeds in terms of like, oh, we're trying to optimize to the max, right? Do everything. And I think there's not. What role do you think traditional software, obviously from your background, this is an easy one. What role does traditional software you think is going to play in how people are using AI moving forward?
I think what's going to happen is this. This is my software. Let's steal your phone for a second. This is my tool. Right now, they're not talking to each other. Now, really smart people like me, Matt, that sounds like I'm not that smart, but nerds, like I'm nerdy enough that I can make these things talk.
Yeah.
So for example, I have the ability to go into Claude and scrub conversational data out of my CRM and say, tell me if there was an unhappy customer this week. Yeah. And it'll find it. But it breaks because it's clunky.
Yeah.
So it gets an update, then it breaks, and it's laborious, right? All we're needing right now is the USB cable to connect these two together, and it's so close.
Yeah.
I called AI and tools like a year ago. I was like, it's happening. I saw it already. Like the super nerd guys were already doing it with the coding softwares where they were typing in a terminal to do SEO, then write email, like all from one spot.
Yeah.
Okay. I was like, but that's not good enough for the market because we're not smart enough or we don't understand those skills. But very soon, QuickBooks is a great example. They already have essentially ChatGPT inside of it, and you can just ask it, hey, on my P&L, what do you see? So software is becoming less about the software. I think soon, if anything, software will be more about it'll be more about they'll have some form of skeleton, but I even think like in 2 years, you'll be prompting your own UI, most likely, to where it's like, this is how I'd like to see it. Maybe there will be like some kind of basis, but kind of like a drag and drop web builder. You'll have like a AI driven software aesthetic that you create and what you want to see. And I think because software hasn't quite caught up to AI yet. Right now, everybody's focused on hardware with data centers and AI in itself. But if you look at like all of the software companies, there hasn't been a massive improvement yet. It hasn't caught up. And I think that they're working on it heavily because there's no shot that a Salesforce or HubSpot or these big companies go out of business. Now, do I think it's going to hurt them somewhat? Yes, but it's also going to reduce the amount of employee infrastructure that they need. So their costs are going to go down and it's not going to matter. But also on the other side, I'm already seeing this too, where you're going to have AI coded CRMs and things like that. The downside to that, what you lose from the big companies is this compliance and safety functions. People don't realize how hazardous it is
100%.
To have a platform that doesn't have a developer making sure it's safe. And I learned a lot about that when we did a QuickBooks integration where, like, on a scale of 1 to 10, if it's not below a 2, they wouldn't allow us to have the app, right? And it was like 8 months of work for Matt to get it to create enough hoops that a hacker couldn't just go steal your credit card data.
Yeah.
And what's going to happen is somebody's going to build a pretty okay, like 85% of their platform. It could be in any industry. We're already seeing it. And then there's going to be blood in the water because all their customers' data is going to get hacked and all that stuff. And I do think there's going to be a small wave of pain.
Yeah.
But for yourself, you could totally design a software for yourself and not sell it because like the likelihood of you being seen by anything that's going to be of a concern is a lot less, but still. But software is becoming more of a commodity, to answer your question. And I think software will be more about the community within the software.
Yeah. I mean, even even at this event, a lot of what we've heard is software and people saying the tools that are out there haven't historically been good for us, right? We're working on our own tools, or we're modifying existing tools using AI to do it. And I think you're right. I think the link is just not there. And the ones that currently say they use AI, right? HubSpot and Salesforce would be on the top of this list. Is like, you guys are using this, what was available 7 months ago, right? And you're just now integrating into your platform. So you're saying, if we think we're almost there, software is going to still be another 6 months or 12 months behind that. So I think it's a ways away, but I think what we talked about earlier is key, right? If you have enough data to input in this, when these things do come online, I think the way that you will be able to integrate your business into them is only going to be easier if you already have all that data, right? If you can give it your SOPs, you can give it your pricing, your costs, all of that stuff, it will just know. It'll do the building for you that currently when you integrate one of those softwares into your business, you have to manually input all those, right? And it's screen after screen. It's days and days of work. And right now it's like, okay, here's my 7 spreadsheets, right? You let me know what you're still missing. And
here's my goal.
Yeah, it'll be like, here's what I need from you still. And then you have to give it 6 inputs instead of 106 inputs, right? So I just think that's key for this.
And I'll add to it too. I think more people don't like software because it exposes their lack of process to begin with.
100%.
That's what I see more than anything. There are already great CRMs that are in place. Even, anybody that comes to me from, say, ShopFox, or comes to Torq from TintWiz or whatever, like, I loved all of them. Urable is insane. Like, TintWiz is actually really good for more so flat glass, in my opinion, than it is for thing. But there's a few small things that were missing that I really wish they could have done, but it doesn't matter. It's actually insane. And again, if it exists, then it's real. The guy who built TintWiz, for example, he just sold it to Full Steam, which was crazy. But Eric had the number 2 flat glass tint company in California using that software. And he kept the software and then enterprised that. So it is a good platform.
Yeah.
Your process just sucks.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people don't realize that a good software exposes your lack of process. And then you get frustrated with it. But really it's because you don't understand your own process map within the business.
Yeah, that makes sense. Do you want to take a second, just go through like, what is Torq, who's it for, what does it do, that kind of thing? We just happened to cover it, but I don't think we covered it any time previously in this podcast.
I'm actually a bad solicitor.
Yeah, you're good.
I am a person who comes from only the value proposition, and if people ask, then I will tell.
Yeah.
But TorqCRM basically was me. Tired of, I came across a few platforms that I really liked, and I constantly was pitched these other platforms and whatnot, and I paid like probably $35,000-$40,000 to try to have something built out for me, right? And I was in that. I had an integrator coach. I was in the planning and mapping of my business and doing all this stuff, and I saw an opportunity, and I was like, I'm tired of paying other people money to try to white collar guys to understand what I'm trying to do. Because in theory, everything they built would have worked, but then it would be clunky in the actual process. And so I started working on it myself in my office. And I basically put a sign on my door that says, "Leave me alone." For 2 reasons. Because I was like a crackhead that would go relapse in the back, and I'd be in the back all day and not working on my business.
Yeah.
But I started building the process down to everything. Like, what message do we send out? How long do we wait on an automation to send it out? How does our proofing workflow look like? How does our this look like? When a customer gets the message for ready for pickup, when do we follow up with the client? And then do we follow up again 6 months later, then at a year, and then at 2 years, then at 5 years, to automatically be trying to reoccur, but like mapped everything. I didn't do a single automation, nothing. It's just on a chart, like a whiteboard chart. And then that's what we use as like the architecture to build Torq, myself and Brad Rapone with Trade Wraps. And he had input, and then we started selling it. We sold it silently to 20 shops. And they were like our founder group, gave it to them for a good rate, and told them, I was like, this is gonna be buggy. Let's figure it out. And what we found out was my process in my shop, even though like Brad's shop is very similar, still had cultural uniqueness or something that was massively different because of like their personality types. So then what we ended up doing is cutting off like the top 15% of it and kind of rounded it off. And we created just a really strong foundation for like Bryce Shepard, for example, he's brand new year one shop. He's going to do like 250 grand probably his first year. But day one, immediately brought on Torq, and he already had all these processes that he hadn't experienced yet, and it was just game on.
Yeah.
And then we trained him on it because we are in the same industry. So he's like, well, why is it that you do this? I was like, well, and then I just explained the why. And he's like, okay, that makes sense, but I want to make some minor changes. Again, we're 85% there. They go and mold that last, 15, 20%, but we help aid them with that. So for example, every single day, Monday through Friday, 1:00 Eastern, we have a group call. If you hired an admin and you don't know how to send an invoice, cool, Tyler, you don't need to know how to send the invoice. Tell the admin to come to the call. I will train your admin for you.
Yeah, that's a cool idea.
And then I listen for things. So it's just like, oh, this person doesn't know how to quote. Hey, did you check out our pricing tool? This is how, and we've already pre-done all the math. And it's like, well, we have trouble quoting lettering projects. It's like, well, no problem. So do most people. So we actually generated through AI, we generated our own app to where you basically put in the measurements of what you would sell to the customer on a coverage, and it will tile it for you like Onyx and tell you your waste and which roll to print it on.
Huh,
so again, I'm actively working in the industry myself, so I know all our pain points, and we catered something like you said, there's gonna be a lot of more boutique-ish type stuff. We catered it purely to the industry, but started off with no code, low code. And then now with AI coding, we're able to bolt on like super accessories, which is really cool.
That's cool. Yeah, I think it's interesting. We talked about it yesterday. It got me excited for where software is headed, where I think prior to our conversation, I would say pessimistic on what I thought the future for software was, just with how easy it is now to do no code, low code. But I think there's a lot of people that even that barrier will be higher than I think it is in my brain.
I'll give you an example. The shop that did the $1 million and then $2 million year 1 and 2, he had a 250 vehicle fleet that he had to do removal plus door letters on. And he's like, man, I got contractors. I don't want them in my software. I don't want to train them on that, but I still want to track my data. He quickly coded up an app, just mobile only, was all it was built for. And he had all his people, and all it was VIN, time. They clocked in and out on the project. And then he would assign them on what part of the job they would do and which VINs it would be. And they would just check in and out on the cars. And then it gave him a report though on the back end of like, well, here's how many removal hours you actually had. Here's how many units that Johnny completed today. And they would clean like 25 units because they're just like letters. So he was able to track everything for a singular project, built a tool only for that project. And then on the back end, we helped him connect the API components because we're smart. Like we understand the base over here. So we were able to help him link it together and even make it to where it like bolted into the software so it looked like it was uniform inside of the system.
That's cool.
So it's so cool what we can do now.
Yeah.
And it's great. At first, like you said, I was a little pessimistic. I was like, oh man, like software is gonna be a commodity, but like, damn, like time's up, but actually it gave us superpowers. The more knowledge we have here of how to instruct and orchestrate stuff, the better it's gonna be.
That's cool. So where can people go to find out more information on Torq?
TorqCRM.com.
Okay. Cool. Well, this has been an awesome conversation. Like I said, I have no clue how long we've been talking, but I was like, yeah, it's probably we probably got to get back to eat.
Yeah, we do. We got to go to work.
Yeah, I guess. But yeah, thanks for coming on. I appreciate it. And thanks for letting me use your stuff. And I didn't have to send anything out. That was kind of nice too. So I appreciate it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this conversation. And we'll see you guys in the next episode. So goodbye.